Thanks,
Let's get started. What we know about broadband. There is a relationship with broadband and economic development. We've got a lot of data on this, and first of all, our research in the U.S. shows that if you don't have broadband, you're not going to be able to keep your businesses in your area, let alone attract them, business organizations. As for households, it's a bit less, not as critical, but they would definitely relocate if they didn't have it. Another interesting fact, and this is in a couple states that we've done, just so you know, since 2010, the states of North Carolina, statewide, going out to 80,000. Virginia was 55,000. Businesses and organizations and households as well, 30,000. But North Carolina, Virginia, Louisiana, Kentucky, Illinois, and we're working on Nebraska now, and as well as other states. They're coming on board with us. So we got a huge data set. Actually, there's nothing that exists like this in the world on how people are using broadband and what are the impacts of it. Quantitatively, hard numbers and jobs and revenues versus the benefits. My day-to-day operations are easier. In terms of the development side, if you don't have it, in terms of jobs created, 31.5% of jobs are created with small businesses, less than 20 employees, because of the broadband. That's what reported to us from this data set of over 36,000 that we have so far, and it's growing. You'll see that 19.2% are from the bigger firms. I think this has an interesting implication when you're looking at economic development strategies. Everyone talks about chasing those big firms to come in and invest in your community. Well, you're competing against the 50 other counties in your state and how many other counties across the U.S. for them to locate there. And the rule of thumb with economic development is 70 to 80% of economic growth comes from existing local small to medium-sized businesses. And so we have that small businesses are actually creating 12 times as many jobs than the bigger businesses. They're dynamic, they can latch onto a new technology, they have a new idea, the technology is really going to help them grow. So, broadband means jobs, and that increases the tax base of the community. That helps justify then the investment. There's a lot more data that we have. It's on our website, you have access, and there's also more data that's going to be coming out later. What I'm going to jump to now is, what is the situation in Nebraska? As Charlotte mentioned, we just started in the summer working on a project, going across the whole state, all businesses, getting them to, respond to our online survey, to collect data on, we know who they are because we have those contact lists, but how are you connected? There's even the speed test in there. What are you doing with, what are you doing with this connection? And then how are you benefiting from it? It takes 15, 20 minutes. And with that, though, we have to actually collect that data because it doesn't exist anywhere else. And we need that data to do our analysis and answer the key questions about not only where you're at, but where you can be, where you need to be. So in terms of utilization, there's a lot of data here, and it's probably hard for people to see at the back. But Nebraska is on par with the rest of the U.S. in terms of purchasing goods and services online. This is for the businesses. Supplier communication, the banking, financial, staff training, and so forth, government transactions, so forth. So this is very much the same lines with the rest of the U.S. What we found interesting was that Nebraska is ahead on a number of key things. Advertising and promotion are about 10% ahead. Teleworking, you're about 10% ahead. Social networking and selling goods or services online. Now that's great. You're really taking advantage of the internet to reach out to customers, building those relationships. And is it a question of you already knew about this, or is it a question of need? If we don't do this, how are we going to compete against others in our sector, not just in the state but in other states as well? So, but that's already a good sign that people understand what's possible, and they're doing it. In terms of the benefits that they're realizing, this is a bit of a different thing. We ask them what they're actually doing. Well, actually, how are they benefiting? And so, again, this is similar to national levels. The day-to-day operations are easier. Hey, I can do this so much quicker now. It's just easy for me to get that out. Rather than a fax, I can do it online or submit this online automatically. Improved service to customers or clients is number 2. Reaching new customer and clients. And I'm not just talking internally, but it's also outside the state and internationally as well. Keeping pace with competitors. So again, these numbers are similar to the national levels, except for a couple things, where again, Nebraska is ahead by about 10% in reaching new customers and clients, reducing the cost of products and services, increasing revenues, and keeping pace with the competitors. So again, is it a function? This is what we're going to look into more as we're just starting this work right now. Because we're reaching out to the individual businesses and organizations on how are you using the internet, what are you doing, and we're using the business coaches that are across the state with the University of Nebraska folks and the business economic development folks, business support economic development folks, to understand, this is the start of a conversation. Now let's better understand, why is this case, whether you're doing this is great, let's build on that success, and then take the next steps that we've identified. Again, we have a lot more data, and about a month and a half time, so forth, in November, we'll have some more results once we've gone through them. These are preliminary results. And we are actually collecting more data, so we encourage you to, Amber will be speaking about 5-10 minutes about what we're doing here and encourage folks to participate in this. So, is it good enough to be just above the national level? Is there anything else to do? Well, actually there is more to do. Great that you're ahead already, there's an understanding, but there's more to do. And this gets to the points that were raised in the discussion here with the telecom providers. They're not going to build out to areas where they don't have the subscribers. If they don't have a business case, they can't do that stretch. They need those communities and those businesses and those organizations and those households to sign up beforehand if they can, to say, hey, you know what, I'm committed to subscribe to this, and I'll make the case to give you that annuity that you need to justify building to here. This illustrates this in a different way. What I call it the laissez-faire approach is, build it, they will come. Everyone sees the movie Field of Dreams. We talked about it this morning. Generally what we've seen across North America and in Europe and in Australia, that's where we work. In year one, this is just an average scenario. You got 10% uptake and then 18% uptake after 3 years. And that gives about an internal rate of return about 5%. When you actually drive utilization, making people aware of what's now possible, helping them understand what they need to do to take advantage of this and giving them the training and support, well, you're getting up to 35%. And generally speaking, and it depends, of course, by network and community and region, once you're above 30%, you're sustainable. The biggest concern, with the whole funding that's been happening in broadband at the federal level is having stranded assets. And I think at a municipal level too and regional level, the investments that are being made. So the question is, how do we go from A approach, laissez-faire, to driving utilization, what needs to be done? And when you look at 5% return versus 24% return, when the cost of capital is 10%, well, you're actually negative in the laissez-faire approach. So the gentlemen that were sitting around the table this morning, they're dealing with that every day. They've got to justify, there's a business case here. And we know from our work, and this is why we're working here with the state and the ECDev and the business support folks, that the biggest benefits from broadband are off balance sheet to the telcos and the internet service providers. It's quality of life, people being able to stay in your community, businesses being able to stay, the youth being able to stay. So, we've got to get the business case, solid, and then all those other benefits we can then have realized. But before we can get that, well, why is this happening? What is the difference between build it and they will come versus the driving utilization? Well, to answer that, we need to get into some technology marketing, and that's where we have this technology adoption curve. This is something that was introduced in the 50s, and we talked about it on what's today, Thursday? Well, Tuesday night at the workshop we held with all the business coaches. There are folks that buy the latest gadget because it's new, it's shiny, it's the latest technology. We call them, they're around here, they're the innovators. They're about 3%. There's the next group here called early adopters. And there again, also, this is interesting, I get it, I'm going to buy it. The rest of them here, majority, over 85%, we call them the technology pragmatists. I see the technology, but why do I care? Show me why I should pay my money to invest in this. So between these, we call it the chasm. You got to convince those folks that this is something of value to you, that you're going to get something back than you otherwise would have paid for. So when you build a network, just with the latest iPhone, people have the iPhone 5S or the color, whatever. You don't need to market to those or convince them why they need this. Just similar with the network. Hey, we got fiber in here. We got a gigabit available, or 16 gig, what was mentioned here before. That's fantastic. These folks will get it. These folks will say, well, why would I pay more for that? Or why would I just go through the hassle of switching? Well, actually, you're not switching because it's a feature of the gigabit that you're getting. It's because of what you can now do. You've got to talk about the benefits of what's possible. And I'll get into the benefits in the next couple of slides. But this number, what I find really interesting from the work that we have done across the US and in Europe particularly, where they've built a lot of fiber, a lot of it is 15, 18% take rates, which fits almost exactly with these numbers here. They're getting automatically people subscribing to those numbers, but they're not sustainable. They're in the red. We got to work on, well, how do we get them understanding what is now possible because of fiber? How does it affect you and your business or your organizations? And that's what we're working on. Driving utilization, what does that mean? Well, there's availability, there's adoption, and then there's utilization. Availability is, hey, we've got it. Adoption is, I'm connected to it. They're doing email and surfing the web. Utilization is actually, selling online, having that relationship with your customers and with your partners, go to meetings and so forth, video conferencing, and having your supply chains all linked up. Really leveraging what is possible. That's not so obvious, and that's where people need some help to understand what's possible, and then help actually, implementing that and getting people trained up to effectively using it. But when you start doing that, on our data, what it shows is that for every 10% increase in utilization is a 24% increase in revenues to that business. That's pretty significant. And then a decrease in cost by 7%. Actually, the decrease in cost is actually a bit higher, but it's hard to capture when people say, hey, I'm saving so much time, it's so much easier. We got hard costs that we've saved, or cost avoidance, but my day-to-day operations being easier. But they're saying it. Everyone's saying it's, absolutely, we're seeing that. For the region, it means, the local businesses being more competitive. It's creating a demand for those high-skilled workers, which is also high-paying jobs, interesting work. Why do I need to move away where I'm paying more in the bigger city, and I get to be here with an interesting job and good quality of life? It also adds to the fiscal revenues, which is actually the tax base. So when you have the regional or municipal investment in the broadband network, you've now helped, keep those businesses, that's business retention, help them grow, that's the tax base, and that helps pay for the network and the other dev activities that need to go along with that. Increasing the utilization directly impacts the revenue growth. And this is data, what is our end number here? It's over 1,200 businesses that have said, these, wrong number. Here, 9 to 10. Those who have the highest score, it's a scale of 1 to 10 in utilization. There's 17 e-solutions that we track. You saw some of them in the previous slides, selling goods and services online and so forth. Those that are really effectively online, taking advantage of being a participant in the digital economy, almost 37% of their revenues are because of them being online. On the other side of the scale, those that are 3 to 4 scale in utilization, it's less than 15%. What does this say to me and to us and as we're working with this? If you're not online, you're losing market share. So there's a digital divide between individuals. There's also a digital divide with businesses. So what's so hard about driving utilization? Well, again, this is with our data. There's things that are easy to adopt: email, banking. Households, they're doing these things. They're finding this stuff. Most people are doing this. For the businesses, buying online, having a basic website up, and so forth. It's happening on its own. What is slower to adopt is, and we've really focused on the business side because that is, what is the core for economic development and sustainability of a community and a region. Being able to sell online, having that online media, that video that, I can click it, I can get it, easily because it's presented in a compelling format. Being able to telework. Actually, Nebraska is, again, 10% ahead in teleworking. Delivering those services and content online. Those are not so easy because it's not just for selling online, it's not just taking a picture of your product and putting it online. You've got to have fulfillment behind it. There's a lot to it. And so that can take 6 to 18 months to implement that. Teleworking, well, you need to have people that understand that even though I can't see what they're doing, they're still getting the job done. As I think it was Brad from Allo Network saying, you want to work from midnight to 8 a.m., that's fine. I can see that you're getting the job done. That's, there's that trust. That's a new way of thinking, and it's not so easy for some to switch to that. It's an organizational change. It's a people change. And the other thing to point out, all this technology, for these e-solutions, what we call the technology component, the hardware, software, connectivity, and so forth, adds up to less than 10% of the total cost of ownership. 60% is people, 30% is process. We're part of the process, trying to organize, get people working together, understanding what's possible, but getting that individual, that business manager, that owner, to do something that they didn't do before, that's 60%. And so, in terms of the slow to adopt versus quick to adopt, the key thing is, what we found in our data is that it's the green ones that have the biggest impact on the local economy. Those are the ones that they're the transformative applications that allow you to have increased reach, huge cost efficiencies and so forth, able for you to work and live remotely. So how can you do that? What do you need to do to be able to get people to start doing this? Well, you have to lead with the benefits. Here's why you want to do it. This is how you have to personalize the return on investment of getting online. And at this point, I'm going to get Amber Hayes to come up here and talk about what we're doing here in Nebraska. But we've thought about this long and hard over the last. I've been doing this for about 15 years now, and you need to, as I said, personalize the value of the broadband to individual businesses. And one way that we do that is having this, what we call a DEI scorecard, the Digital Economy Index scorecard. And we're deploying that across the state right now in Nebraska. We've done this in other states. What I'm excited about here is, working with Charlotte Nargis and Jim Keeler, is that working at such a large scale across the state, but at a micro level, like individual businesses and organizations, having them understand what is now possible, and having all those business coaches that are going to be working with them and coordinating with the local stakeholders. That to me is exciting. And I want to have Charlotte talk about that a bit.
And Amber. All right. Hello, folks. So I saw some of you on Tuesday night. Here I am chattering away to you at the end of the conference as well. I'm going to be explaining a little bit about the scorecard, what that means to you. But I think before I do that, I'm just going to jump into the bigger picture. And first of all, applaud all of you in Nebraska for doing what I think is a really innovative maneuver in regard to getting your businesses to embrace adopting new technologies and online e-solutions. And in that point, we shouldn't be that surprised that it's innovative. A couple little key things before I jump into the scorecard. You remember that lovely roller coaster we were looking at before on Michael's slide? Do you think, based on that, when it comes to the early adopters and the innovators, how many of you think that Nebraska has less of those innovative people? Good. If I had candy, I'd throw it out to you, because actually an innovative state program is reflected by the fact you have more innovators and early adopters, almost double actually. So for those of you in ECDEV and who are going to go out there and work with those businesses, that's a good thing. And when we look at encouraging folks to engage, how many of you saw me Tuesday night? You remember my werewolf? There's no werewolf inside. I'm sorry. Do it again then, hands up. So for those of you that weren't here Tuesday night, the ones that had their hands up are actually going forth as a transformative army into Nebraska to help coach businesses in adopting the broadband technologies. So if you saw them and look, I'm already putting the pressure on, find them and chat to them about how they can help businesses in your region. One of the tools that we talked about was this beautiful DEI scorecard. So when we talk about gathering all this data, as a business coach, we want to remove those statements when we talk to a business about, well, I think, and it kind of feels like. So we want to actually give them hard numbers so that they can do a definitive decision-making process. Instead of, I think I need to be on Facebook, or I think I need to sell online, by doing that assessment process, we can identify where are the real gaps and opportunities for that unique business. So the beautiful thing that happens with this type of model is Strategic Networks Group with Nebraska goes out, they collect peer data. And they can compare that to other states saying, you're a manufacturing company that is this big with this many employees making this much money in this sort of industry sector. And based on that, the results of others just like you, even in rural areas, yes. If you apply what we've defined as the top 3 e-solutions, these are the results you can anticipate, which provides hard numbers, which is important as a business. When we talk about leading with benefit, what's one of the favorite benefits? I'm gonna make more money. And actually, when we look at the scorecard, it's hard to see from here, but there'll be some examples. I'm sure you'll get these handouts probably online. For this example, selling goods or services online, new revenues for this company, and I can't actually, it's got 20 to 46 employees, would be an increase of revenues around 500,000, and a cost savings at about 0.3% at 1,200. Yeah, he's nodding. Yeah, that's motivating. So when we talk about encouraging engagement and how we'll use these tools that Nebraska is rolling out, this is one of them. So the coach can now sit down with a small business. The business has gone to the Broadband Nebraska.gov website and done their assessment, and they can say, well, here we go, Joe. Everything just went dark. Don't be afraid, because that's part of our role as a coach as well, to keep them from being scared. But we can identify, here's the top 3 things that you can do, you can adopt for your unique business, and these are some of the things we can expect in return. Saving money, saving time, and you can work through it with a coach and a business relationship to say it's also going to be better for your customers. You can increase your target market, and we can create milestones with them to say, okay, this is what we need to implement, this is what we expect, this is how long it's going to take to roll out, and there's other handy-dandy tools that we can use to do even more. It's true, even more. How exciting. Let's see what that would look like. We can go from the scorecard that we were just looking at that was generated using amazing little wizards and genies in the back called algorithms, but we can go, if we want hands-on it with a small business, we can use an ROI calculator. So we can say, well, actually, we want to look at some different things too. And we can go in and we can plug in, again, the information about that business, its size, its revenues, and then pick, okay, what am I using already? So the algorithm little genie isn't going to look at that. Other than to say benefits realized already, but what do you want to add? So again, we can sit down as a coach anywhere in Nebraska and go through this with a business. And the wonderful little machine will go do-do-do-do, do-do-do. Actually, it doesn't make any noise, it's quite quiet. We should look at making it make noise. It could go grrr or something. And it'll pop out new revenue, savings, and a net benefit. Ooh. So again, in Nebraska, this helps working with those businesses to say, okay, we can start building a plan around this. And when you and your staff feel a little shaky and a little frightened about adopting a new cloud technology, A, you won't because you've been coached so well by the folks in this room. Secondly, if you do have that moment, you can look up at your wallet, your motivating poster that was printed out as a PDF format that says, this is what we're shooting for, and this is why we're adopting this new CRM system, or whatever it is. Make sense? All right, Michael's going to come up here and come after me. I can see that happening. However, before I give you back the microphone, most entertaining part is when he tries to get the mic away from me, is for those of you in the room, if you go to the Broadband Nebraska site, there is that assessment is still available. So I would encourage you, it's only available for a couple more weeks, to, if you have businesses in your region, and one of the one things we hear is, I'm not sure it's for me. I'm a software geek, I've been in technology for 15 years, I will guarantee you there will be some benefit for your champion businesses in doing this assessment. There's going to be money saved, time saved opportunities. Limited time, limited offer, only a few spots left. So right now, tweet them and email them and tell them to take that assessment. We'll set them up with scorecards and take it from there. Now, I can see your concerns, so I'm going to give you the mic back. But thank you for listening, and get your business involved and help them make more money and take over the world.
Yeah, you have to stay up here with me.
I'm supposed to stay.
So I've got a mic here on my lapel. So thank you, Amber, for showing some of the tools that we're using. At the end of the day, again, as I was saying about technology, these are important tools. This is now personalizing the ROI of the broadband that is available and these tools to those individual businesses. But it's really the coaches and the local stakeholders on the ground giving business support to say, sit down with those businesses and saying, look, here's what we can do. Here's what you can realize. Okay, now let's figure out what makes sense for you. And so they have a strategy, have a plan going forward on, this is what's going to make sense for my business. And then help them through that, linking them up with the training and support and so forth. I see you sneaking away. So, this is a key tool. There's other tools that we have, and Charlotte and Jim can show you what those are. But the key thing is, getting businesses across the state to participate. Having that reach out from, we've had the emails out. This is, participate in this. But having that local encouragement. Hey, you got that email. Take the 15, 20 minutes. Participate. More data is better. We can not only give them some feedback that is relevant to them, but in planning the activities and the programming. And we got to bridge some gaps here. There's a lot more that we can do. Hey, you're at 10% above the rest of the states. That's great. But you know what? There's a lot more that can be done. Let's realize those opportunities. Let's make those happen. Okay? And that's what my final slide is about. The elements of success, to achieve economic growth from broadband. Well, there's four core things. And typically everyone focuses on, the build part, the supply side, the engineers, get it out there. Well, yeah, you need that. You need a reliable, affordable, high capacity connection. Okay, and we're getting there. There's a lot of things that need to be done. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. But there are a lot of good people working on this. There's a lot of investment being made towards it. Not just money, but time. Having responsive customer service. And from what I've gathered, here in the last few days and talking to some of the providers, you've got some great providers here. And they're willing to take that stretch with you, but they're asking you to take that stretch with them as well. Meaningful utilization. That's what we're doing right now. Here's what you can be doing. You heard about all those other things. These are good, and you're being afraid of, it's going to cost me $10,000 to get a website up. Well, it's going to generate, $60,000 in revenues just having the website. And if you go online selling, that's going to, as Amber was pointing out, that's another $500,000 in revenues. Well, now that $10,000 doesn't look so big as a number anymore when you compare that against the revenues. And then we can start really implementing this. So it's meaningful utilization. We're working that over the next year. And I'm excited about the results that we're going to get. And then local ownership to drive this process. You need those business coaches. You need those economic development folks. You need those local champions and leaders and the elected officials to be part of this process. Because if you're not doing this, well, the family that wants to move into the area that has an opportunity is, I think it was Brad Moline was saying, he's not going to come in. I got a couple kids myself, and I'm looking for, I can work anywhere. I have to go visit the clients, but I can work anywhere, and a lot of us can here, Amber as well. But we want a good school. We want some of those amenities, like a new pool, or if possible, and so forth. So we choose where we want to live, and broadband is part of that equation. So those communities that are taking charge of this and saying we want to be an attractive place for highly skilled workers with high-paying jobs to come here, you're going to get them with that process. So what I'm seeing in Nebraska is you're taking care of all four elements here. You're taking care of at a statewide level, but working at where it counts at the individual business and working with the communities and regions. So I'm excited about what's happening. I think there's a great path forward here. And over the next 6 to 8, 6 months to a year, seeing this happen and then coming back and saying, what's been the impact? How many new applications have you implemented? What's been the impact to your revenues? How many new jobs? What's been the impact on the tax base? That's what we can calculate. And then say, you know what, yeah, we've spent this much in investing in broadband networks and this much in this coaching activity and awareness and adoption, but look at the results we've had. I want to tell that story the next time I'm up here. So with that, I'm going to end. Are there any questions that we have, so forth?
On your slides up there, I see you have revenue up there. Do you have any place where you discuss with the folks you coach the cost that will be involved implemented on their end, the CPE, the software that's required to do that? And then I guess related to that, how do you convince those people that might be adopters otherwise, but tell them that they're not going to be beta testers, or that there won't be security concerns, data concerns, that sort of stuff?
It's one of actually security concerns and privacy concerns are continue to be the #1 barrier actually for people adopting across the board e-solutions. And the expense line, these tools are basically generated to provide, as you pointed out, net benefit, affecting the positive side of where the bottom line calculation comes out. What we need to do as coaches next, I'm going to pop out from behind the podium, is when we've identified those top e-solutions, there are additional tools within the suite called our e-modules. And each of those, for instance, we have an online module for the cloud, we have one for teleworking, we have one for selling online. So as a coach, we identify, okay, where are our top solutions? And then we take that and we go through the e-module for the according e-solution, so it could be selling online. And in that it tells, again, what is it, why do you care, and how do you create a plan. The plan links to a resource page, which I can attest to is worth hundreds of hours of research, that outlines here are the top industry leading solutions internationally, based on everything from freemium right up through to enterprise with review sites, and that helps the client basically gain the resources to make that decision along with their coach. And again, as a coach, and we talked about on Tuesday, I would suggest it's a process of you're creating a business plan. These are the first parts of the tool to create your revenue milestones. Then use the modules to pick which solutions that you'll be using. And of course, they're typically well-established solutions that are industry leaders. You're not going to be beta testing it. Unless you choose to build your own, but.
As Amber had pointed out in the workshop that we did on Tuesday night, the modules are really self-directed. They can learn about them as they want. They're also local resources. There's colleges, local training. Jim Keeler was mentioning that there's a lot of training resources that are available. That's great. So bringing those all together. The one thing I will point out though, people have different modes of learning. How I go about learning about this is an individualized thing. What we have found in our research across all the states, because we ask this, most people like to have the self-directed, I can find out on my own time. Classroom learning is always at the bottom. So just keep that in mind when you're working with folks. They want to have that one-on-one, they want to have those resources, and that's what we've built.
The other thing that they want is a level of customization. They want to be unique, and they want their solutions to be unique. It's a big part of them adopting something, rather than us coming up with a block scenario and saying it will cost you this much. When we work with a small business to start selling online, There are some solutions they can set up for a few $100s and pay a percentage. These are international, well-established companies that specialize in that, are very secure, and have great omni-channels or multi-channels to sell product. They're already established. But again, it's a process of using the modules to identify, okay, we could start with one of these smaller solutions, work through a few of our products, evaluate that against the milestones, and then if we want, maybe get more of an enterprise solution, or perhaps just stay with that smaller solution and increase our channels.
And Amber speaks from the, she has been helping, business startups to, medium-sized enterprises implement these. She's our business coach. She's the lead on this, and she's the one that's been the lead in developing these modules. So.
S&G really has a nice module with materials that are out there, but to complement that and to build in Nebraska, one of the things that we're doing is working with UNL Media. UNL Media has a lot of resources to help build, answer questions around from security to other things and to help the business locally. Because the online things, even though we know people will go to online, not everyone will, especially those that haven't utilized as much. We also have with an extension, and I think Dr. Hibbert shared there are a lot of resources. So I guess what I'm trying to say, and DEDs have different tools. One of our goals of doing this is to build capacity of service providers to give support, and working with the providers too, and so that while S&G is here helping us and teaching us these things, we're hoping that we can sustain this in the long run to help the businesses.
Great.
Did that answer your question? Did it answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Any others? Or how are we for time?
I think we've got about 5 more minutes, 4 more minutes. Any other questions?
3.5 more minutes? 3 minutes?
Limited time offer. All right. With that, I want to thank you. We're excited, about working with Nebraska. I think there's a lot of really important things that are happening, and congratulations to all of you in making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.